Hey Wolfpack, and welcome back. I hope your week has been going well. I know mine has. So, today, we'll be reading 3 scary delivery driver stories. But, before we start, what serial killer from the past interests you the most? Comment down below, I'd very much like to know. So, with that said, whether you're sitting around a campfire, on the night shift, or even lying in bed, let my voice soothe your nightmares. When in college, I got a job working as a pizza delivery driver for Domino's. I saw quite a few odd and bizarre things during that time, but none of it was as weird or as horrific as my last delivery. It was at night, late evening, around Halloween. I forgot the exact day, but I do remember seeing the jack-o'-lanterns everywhere. And I do mean everywhere. Word of advice: don't leave jack-o'-lanterns out before Halloween. The weather plays hell with them. More than few had started to rot, their faces caved in under mold and fungus. I didn't pay it any attention, nor should I have. When I pulled up to the house, however, I felt a chill run up my spine. Something was wrong. The house didn't have any pumpkins out or anything, not a single Halloween decoration anywhere. It made it stand out next to the surrounding houses, which were all done up in preparation for the coming holiday, which was still at least a week or so away. So, why wasn't this guy decorated for Halloween? I immediately rationalized it as just someone not celebrating Halloween, which, to be fair, isn't unheard of. It happens, I mean. Every town has someone who doesn't celebrate it. I found it odd that was what had sent the chill up my spine, then chastised myself for just being stupid. As I got out of the car, the pizza bag in my arms, I felt the cool breeze whip against my skin and shivered. I had to make this quick. I'd just gotten a few steps close to the house when I stopped. Something was very wrong here. I cannot explain how I knew, but I just did. Call it a gut feeling. Something was just very, very wrong. I swallowed, wanting to keep walking forward when the front door opened. A draw chain went taut across the open space, hanging suspended in midair. It was just a crack, and it made some ancient primal part of me, unused since we crawled out of the mud, scream. None of the lights were on. The house seemed to be shrouded in darkness, just complete and total darkness, throughout the entire interior of the house. Then, someone spoke. The voice was raspy, light, and sounded like it hadn't been used for nearly 100 years. "Pardon me," it breathed, "but why are you here?" I felt like sweat was raining down my body. My clothes stuck to it. Combined with the intense autumn cold, I felt uncomfortably exposed. I'm here to deliver your pizza," I was about to say, "sir," when I stopped. I couldn't tell if this voice belonged to a man or a woman. Something in the inflection was wrong. That signature little difference in cadence between the genders, it was missing that. "Ah," the voice said. "Pizza. Yes. Would you mind approaching?" The voice had changed now. It was deepening, the cadence slightly shifting. A disturbing sense of familiarity flew over me. I couldn't place where I'd heard the voice before, however, but I was sure I knew it. "I can pay you handsomely." There. That was what was familiar about this voice. My grip on the bag of pizza loosened, and I felt it begin to slip from my hands as my throat went dry. I was wrong. I could place that voice. It was my voice. It was my own fucking voice. The tone and inflection were changing into an exact replica of me. Without waiting another second, I turned and bolted to the car, dropping the bag to the ground. "Wait!" The voice wasn't raspy anymore. It was clear, strong, and urgent. "Wait!" The bolt was being unlatched. I didn't. I got into my car, turned on the ignition, and left. I didn't care about the boxes and pies I was leaving behind. I couldn't stay here anymore. As I pulled away, I didn't dare look behind me. I just kept my eyes on the road in front of me, but I did hear my own voice, calling after me, asking me to come back, to just wait a few minutes longer. When I was at least a mile away, I pulled over, got out my phone, and dialed the police. I explained at length that the house I'd just delivered to was a crack house, and that I'd seen children in there doing drugs, and suspected there was an underage prostitution as well. I didn't think about the consequences, only what would get the police to that house as fast as possible. So, I just spat out the most serious charges I could think of. I lied. Predictably, I got in trouble with the manager when I came back without the bag. When he asked me why, I explained that I was nearly assaulted by the client and had been forced to drop it. My manager was about to make me go back and get it when I told him I wasn't going back there. He was a little mad that I'd lost company property, but didn't push it. The next day, I was brought in for questioning. When the police had raided the house, they'd found it empty, without a trace of drugs or anything. They'd also talked to my manager, and after getting his story, the one I'd told him, they were certain I'd lied to them. Under intense interrogation, I cracked and told them everything. I was put into a psych ward for about a month. I was also fired from my job. My grades were shot to pieces, and I wasn't able to pay my tuition. When I got out, I was left with a life in shambles. I had to move back to New York with my family and try to put things back together. Sometimes, I do wonder if I had a psychotic break that night, if I had imagined hearing a voice that didn't sound human, slowly changing to mine. But, well, there's exactly one detail which makes me believe otherwise. They never did find the bag, or the pizzas I'd abandoned. What was your teenage dream job? Not your dream job with a salary and a 401k, but the one you wanted as a teenager. Mine was pizza delivery driver. I've always enjoyed the solitary act of driving, no matter how short the drive, and pride myself on not having to rely on a GPS. I didn't get an opportunity to realize my teenage dream until I was a junior in college. The college I went to was a mid-sized university in a tiny Appalachian town. Starting my junior year, I was allowed to have a car on campus, and I knew the first thing I would do would be to quit my dining hall career and find a new one delivering pizzas. Sadly, there were only a couple of pizza places in town, and the driving jobs there were fairly competitive. I settled for a position at a bar that was just starting to roll out a food delivery service. I was the only driver and worked virtually every day. The bar hoped to break into the small but competitive delivery market by delivering to locations other places wouldn't. The town may have been tiny, but the county and townships surrounding it were expansive. Little homes and hamlets spread all across the hills and connected by only country roads. My dream job was everything I hoped it to be. A few months in, however, I received a peculiar call near close. "Are you delivering at this late hour?" A man's voice on the other end of the line asked. Truth was, we weren't. The bar stayed open until 2 a.m., but delivery services were supposed to cease at 11:30. It was now 11:40. Still, I felt like I could use one more drive to listen to some music before I packed it in for the night. I told the caller that we were still delivering. "Excellent. I would like one cheeseburger with extra ketchup and extra mayo, one Reuben sandwich, one order of cheesy fries, spinach dip, an order of chicken wings extra crispy and extra hot, and 3 orders of mozzarella sticks." I knew the kitchen would be annoyed to having to cobble all that together, especially after I was supposed to be done for the night, but I also relished the idea of the tip that massive order would incur. The man on the line gave me an address and then hung up. Once the order was ready, I grabbed the mass of food, which had been divvied up into 3 plastic bags, and got into my car. I punched the address the man had given me into my phone and was delighted to see it was close to 25 minutes away. He might be annoyed that his food would be lukewarm, but at least I would get to roll the window down, feel the evening mountain breeze, and listen to some Avett Brothers. The town's sparse light shriveled in my Civic's rearview mirror, and soon I was on the familiar country back roads. It was brutally, beautifully dark. I sped on. After 20 minutes or so, my GPS indicated that I was about to arrive. The darkness and the surrounding woods were still thick, but I saw a glimmer of light just ahead. The light was coming from streetlights in a tiny parking lot in front of the building that looked like a small office plaza. As I entered the lot, my headlights revealed a sign that read, Appalachian Hospice. This confused me a bit. The man on the phone didn't sound elderly or infirm. Perhaps he was a part of the family paying a late-night visit to a grandparent, or maybe even an orderly just starting his shift. The former was more likely, as he had provided me with a room number. I parked in the lot, close to the front. Mine was the only car visible. I made my way to the front entrance. The air outside was humid and crisp. I was expecting an intercom system, but all I saw was a single glass door leading to a dimly lit room, the outline of a desk behind it. I regretted not jotting the man's number down, or saving it in my phone. I knew the front door was likely locked, but I gave it a pull anyway. To my surprise, it opened, and I entered the facility. I had been lucky enough at this point in my life to have never entered a hospice. This was my first time, and I was immediately struck by how oppressive it seemed. The air was warm and stale. The lights were dim because it was after hours, but I got the sense that it wouldn't feel much more welcome in the daytime anyways. It appeared to be a reasonably well cared for place, but the specter of death inside was unmistakable. Light sweat began to trickle down the back of my neck. No one was there to greet me at the door. The guard or receptionist station was empty, though the computer monitor inside was on. There were hallways on either side of me. I chose the one that I thought was more likely to have room 12 and made my way down it. As soon as I crossed the threshold into the hallway, the noises began. Crackling moans and whimpers made their way to my ears. It wasn't the moan of someone in pain, but the moan of someone, I don't know, worried? Still, I continued on. I had food to deliver and a tip to collect. The crying crescendoed as I neared room 9. The doors of the other rooms all had been closed, but I could see that this one was open. Despite my fear and discomfort, the logical part of me knew this was nothing paranormal. This was a place where people came to die. Arguably, these moans of despair were the most normal thing imaginable, given the circumstances that is. That didn't mean the noise didn't frighten me, though. My curiosity was stronger than my fear, and I took a peek inside the room. I covered my mouth, knowing it wouldn't save me from anything contagious. There was an impossibly withered, wasting, frail old man laying on a plain gurney. His eyes were shut tightly, and his little hands gently clasped a blanket just under his chin. His face and fingers looked taut and strained, and he was shivering. This is normal, I reminded myself. This is what dying is, and this is in the right place to do it. I couldn't help but be unsettled by the lack of healthcare professionals I had seen thus far, though. I was only 3 doors away from my destination. I decided that I would deliver the food, and then on my way out, would head down the other hallway and notify a doctor that a patient was in distress. A few big strides later, I had finally reached room 12. Like 9, this one was open. I cautiously took a look inside and didn't see anyone. There was an empty gurney before me, but it looked like someone had been there moments before. The sheets were a mess, and there were used tissues on the bedside table next to it, scattered haphazardly around framed photos from loved ones and cards from well-wishers. Had the man moved to another room? Gone to the bathroom? I was then startled by a familiar, now booming voice. "Is that you, my friend? Is that food?" The voice asked. It was coming from behind a sheet situated next to the first gurney. "Yes," I stammered and entered the room. I maneuvered beyond the curtain and was finally met with the source of the voice on the phone. At the sight of him, I tried to stifle a gasp. The man was huge. Absolutely huge. Beyond massive, actually. He looked to be conservatively 500 pounds, and I would wager even more. He was dressed in what appeared to be teal scrubs, but rolls of his flesh spilled out from under the shirt, and beyond the drawstring pants, and over the sides of the gurney, like an ice cream sandwich melting through its wrapper on a hot summer day. I don't mean to body shame. I'm a rather large man myself, but I had never come close to seeing something like this. "I'm very happy you're here, friend. I'm very hungry," the man said. Despite his size, the man's voice was not pitched as one would expect from the fat surely encroaching on his voice box and diaphragm. If anything, his voice was deep, assured, suave even. "Yes," I managed to say, and placed the bags of food on a nearby chair. I began the ritual of pulling out each to-go carrier out and revealing what was inside so we knew the full order had arrived. Cheeseburger, Reuben, cheesy fries, spinach dip, chicken wings, 3 orders of mozzarella sticks. It was all there. "Excellent! Just wonderful!" the man exclaimed with a little more energy than I was expecting. He was sitting up in bed now, as much as he could anyway, and beaming. "I will provide you with payment in a moment, but first, please pass me the cheeseburger. I must simply eat right now. I've already eaten once tonight, but the meal was very dissatisfactory. I was so happy to hear you were open at such a late hour." I handed over the burger, starting to feel deeply uncomfortable. Now that my shock at seeing the size of the man had subsided, I started to notice some other, disquieting features about him. I knew that obesity was a problem in this part of the country, but, aside from the man's size, he displayed no other signs of coming from one of the poorer areas in the county. His accent was refined, almost posh. Aside from the obvious, he looked well cared for. His black hair was neat and tidy. His skin was smooth. There were no blemishes, no acne, no visible stretch marks that I could see. He seemed new. I also couldn't help but notice that he didn't appear to be hooked up to any of the other darkened machines around him. No breathing tube or IV, or anything that indicated he might be a patient. And while the bed of his presumed roommate next to him had flowers, photos, and cards from family members adorning it, there was nothing on the large man's side of the room, just his massive frame on his small bed. "That was beautiful. Please tell the chef that he knows exactly what extra mayonnaise and extra ketchup means," he said. There were bits of crimson sauce and rare meat smeared across his pristine, pale face. He looked like a corpulent vampire. "The spinach dip now, if you will." I passed over the circular container. He popped it open and poured the dull green contents into his mouth like soft-serve filling a waffle cone, finishing the appetizer in 10 seconds, maybe less. Then, he mashed the pita bread triangles together and swallowed them too. "The Reuben, my friend. Please, don't worry. I promise I will pay you. I'm just very hungry. Famished and absolutely starving. Do you understand? My most recent meal was woefully insufficient." I passed the Reuben to him as well, and soon he had devoured that as well. I knew at the rate that he was now eating, it would all be gone soon, and elected to bring him the cheesy fries before he could ask. "Ha! Yes, excellent. Those are exactly what I wanted next. What are these little bits here? Ah, bacon. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Would you like a bite, my friend?" he said. I'm okay," I said. I couldn't imagine ever feeling hungry again. "Do you think your roommate will want any food? Where is he?" The man laughed, a deep, throaty bark. "I don't imagine he would, no. I offer a share of this feast to you because I can see that you are also the kind of person who is hungry," he said, snarling and wheezing through bits of fried potato. I definitely look like I don't skip any meals. Normally, I wouldn't like having that pointed out, but at this specific unsettling moment, I didn't have the mental bandwidth to be offended by his assumed camaraderie. "Oh, I don't mean to be rude. I just want you to understand that there is nothing shameful about appetite. Nothing," he shouted, his cheeks gaining a ruby tint, beads of sweat jumping from his forehead. I physically recoiled at his change in tone. He did not seem to care, though. He held out his massive hand, clearly expecting more food. I piled the mozzarella stick boxes and handed them over, keeping my body as far away as possible. "Ha ha, yes! Fried perfectly. Wonderful! No, what I mean is, my friend, is that I suspect people have told you all your life you have to watch what you eat. I know they used to with me. Used to. But they don't do that anymore, because once you know the truth, You'll never conform to their impotent shaming tactics again." He tore apart the breadsticks as he spoke, marveling at the cheesy contents within. He shoved the remaining mush into his mouth 3 at a time in between his words. At the conclusion of his statement, opened up the tiny containers of marinara and downed them like shots of liquor. "The truth?" I squeaked as I handed over the chicken wings. "That we are here to consume. We are born empty, and every moment we spend not filling ourselves is a moment wasted. Listen to your appetites, my friend. Listen to your hunger. Eat, consume, eat, consume, eat again and again. Eat whatever you want." I was silent. I had no more food to give him. "Well, looks like I've consumed close to everything for now." "Ha ha 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 ha." He laughed, his beaming face covered in discolored food sludge. He really did look like the happiest man in the world. "What do I owe you, friend?" 68.70, I said. The man reached down to his bedside table, again with the uncommon grace, opened the drawer, and pulled out a single, immaculate $100 bill. "Here you go, my son. You can keep the change. Promise me that you'll follow your hunger." "Yes, thank you. I will. Have a good night," I said. I accepted the money and backed away until I was behind the man's curtains. He kept his large, watery eyes on me, smiling the whole time. As I exited the room, I could have sworn I saw small red stains on the empty, disheveled bed by the door. I was shell-shocked and disturbed as I made my way back down the hallway. I wanted to get back to my car, and then back to the dishes awaiting me at the restaurant as soon as possible. I had all but forgotten the whimpering man in room 9, but when I neared the door, I suddenly remembered my internal promise to check back in on him. I peered into the room and felt my guts plummet. The frail old man was on his side now, facing the door, his arms crisscrossed around his shoulders, and his milky eyes wide open in absolute terror. He did not seem to register that I was in his doorframe. He whispered aloud to no one in particular, voice trembling, It is hungry. It is hungry. It is hungry." I used to enjoy my pizza delivery job. It was a pretty simple way to make some easy money if people actually tipped. And not to toot my own horn, but I was pretty good at it. I was definitely the quickest driver at the time, and I rarely made mistakes. So, needless to say, I wasn't expecting one experience would cause me to never want to return. It was a typical Friday. I was halfway through my 8-hour shift and I was making okay tips. It was around 7 p.m. and the sky was already charcoal black. The moon was full, and there wasn't a cloud in sight. I was assigned to an address in which I had never been. Oddly enough, when I searched the address on Google Maps, the results were for a house 40 miles away. I knew that couldn't be accurate, so I tried Apple Maps. Surely enough, I found the right address, which was only 6 minutes away from the restaurant. Traffic was light, and I made it to her house in 4 minutes. Did I mention that I was the quickest? Once the door opened, the smell of cat piss filled my nose. I immediately felt nauseous, but I'm used to odd and vile smells coming from people's houses anyways. This was nothing new, but it seemed to affect me more today. The person who answered the door was an old woman with a gray pixie cut and a floral-patterned robe. She spoke in a very soft voice, saying, "Thank you for coming. I know what you're thinking." I assumed she was going to bring up the smell, but then she says, "I bet you're thinking the house looks a lot different since the last time you were here." I was never there before. Yet, once I tried to tell her that, she spoke again. "Come in, please." I reluctantly walked into her foul-smelling home. Surprisingly, I didn't see a cat anywhere, nor a litter box. She commanded, "Just place the pizza down on this table." She points at an old oak wood dining table in the kitchen. I walk over to place her pizza down before saying, "Your total is $26.67. "Can I pay you with card?" she asks. Yeah, but I'll have to call the store first. It's supposed to be done over the phone." "Oh, okay. I only have $2 on me in cash right now. She utters, "No problem. My phone is in the car. I'll be right back." I jogged to my car and grabbed my phone. I still had the pizza in the insulated bag. I stayed outside to begin the call because I don't know how long I would be able to handle the smell. My coworker Brittany answers in a monotone voice. Before I can say hello, she immediately says, "Hey, this is Sergio's Pizza. Please hold." I wait and listen to the music while staring at the full moon. Something about the slow piano and the cloudless sky was both soothing and ominous. I was on hold for at least 5 minutes, and I was starting to get irritated. I also felt bad for making this woman wait for so long just to pay for her food. Brittany finally takes me off hold, and I immediately tell her, "Hey, it's me. The lady I'm delivering to needs to pay with card." "Okay, give her the phone so she can tell me the credit card info," she says. "Okay, 1 sec." I go back into her house, being hit with a smell even harder this time, and I tell her that she needs to tell my coworker over the phone her credit card info. She begins to mumble and talk even softer than before. I didn't understand all of it, but I did hear, "My kids need to eat," and "My husband's not here." I repeat to her what I said earlier, and she grabs the phone and starts to mumble again to Brittany. This time, I didn't understand a single word. She hands me the phone back, looking disappointed. Brittany is on the phone repeatedly saying, "Hello?" And I start to tell her I will just say the credit card info. I ask the old lady for a card. She hands the phone to me, all while mumbling and pacing back and forth. I read the card info to Brittany, and she says the card was approved. Finally, I thought to myself, I can finally leave. I set the pizza down, and she yells to an empty room across the call, "Kids, come get your pizza!" Nobody comes. I didn't think much of it, and begin to walk to the door. She yells at me, "Wait!" She sounds like an entirely different person when she yells. "Where are you going, Steven?" She asks. My name isn't Steven. "It's a little too late for you to go outside right now. Can you play with your friends tomorrow?" This poor woman must be suffering from dementia, I thought. I tell her, "My name isn't Steven. I gotta go back to Sergio's." "You're not going anywhere this time of night, and that's final. It's too dangerous." I don't want to deal with this right now, so I reach for the door handle to leave. She once again says wait, but this time she adds, "Let me get your tip." She must have snapped out of it, I guess, and who am I to say no to extra money? She walks over to pick up an old leather purse off the floor. It looked heavy. She reaches in and pulls out a silver revolver and points it at me. My heart immediately sank to the floor. What are you doing?" I ask in a shaky voice as I put my hands up. "I'm not gonna let you leave me again, Steven," she answers. I once again say to her, "My name is not Steven. Please, I just want to go back to work." She ignores me and says, "Sit down and eat with your brothers and sisters like a good little boy." I do what she says. Anything is better than getting shot. I sat down on a creaky chair at the end of the table in front of the pizza. She sat down across from me. She looks over at the empty seats on each side of the table and proclaims, "Brenda? Tommy? Why aren't you eating yet? You didn't have to wait for your brother." I slowly reached down to my pockets to try to grab my phone. Maybe I could call the police and they would hear what's going on, I thought. Yet, my phone wasn't in my pockets. I looked around and see it on the counter near the refrigerator. I don't remember putting it there. She must have somehow sneakily took it out of my pocket. How didn't I notice that? She opens the pizza box and grabs 2 slices for herself. The pizza is topped with olives, pineapples, ham, and sausage. She catches me staring. "Won't you get some, Steven? I know this was always your favorite." I responded with, "No thanks, I'm not hungry." The gun was flat on the table next to her plate. I thought that now would be a great time to make a break for it, but I doubted I'd make it to the door before she'd pick it up again. I decided to not risk it and wait for a more opportune time. "I didn't ask if you were hungry. You haven't ate all day. At least have a slice," she ordered. I'm really not hungry, I said once more. She looked at me blankly for a minute without blinking. Suddenly, she grabbed a metal fork and reached across the table, driving it into the back of my left hand. I yelped in pain, and blood started to flow from my hand all over the table. I pulled it out quickly, causing blood to gush out even quicker. "Now, eat!" she yells. Blood had stained the pizza box. I grab a slice with my non-wounded hand and force myself to eat. Something about being stabbed with a fork, the pungent smell of cat piss, and being threatened with a gun makes it hard to eat. I couldn't keep a single bite down. I vomited in my mouth and swallowed it, not wanting to anger her anymore. She watched me the entire time with an expressionless face. I kept looking at my bleeding hand. I started to feel lightheaded and dizzy. I knew I had lost too much blood by this point. I felt like I was on the verge of passing out. I knew I had to find an escape fast. Thankfully, my phone had begun to ring. Probably my manager calling to ask why I haven't returned yet. She grabbed the gun while she turned her head at the sound of my loud and annoying ringtone. This was it. My chance to escape. I grabbed the table and quickly flipped it onto her body, knocking her over. She screamed and fired around into the roof as she fell. I ran to the counter to grab my phone like an idiot before leaving. She pushed the table off of her, then sat up and fired another round at me. Luckily, she missed and hit the fridge. I ran as fast as I could. As I got close to the door, she fired 2 more rounds at me. This time, I wasn't so lucky. She managed to hit me right in the back of my left shoulder. She clearly has a problem with my left arm. I refused to let this stop me though. I opened the door and stumbled to my car. I fumble to get my keys out as she chases me outside and fires at me twice again. The bullets shatter my windshield. I knew she was out of bullets. I got into my car, sitting on the broken glass. I had lost too much blood already to care. I started up the car and put it in reverse quicker than ever before. I drove 80 miles an hour all the way back to the restaurant. I passed out on the floor as soon as I made it 2 steps through the glass doors. I woke up in a hospital to a policeman questioning me about the incident. I told him everything. Once that was over, I immediately called Sergio's Pizza to let them know I won't be returning anytime soon. Thanks for listening, Wolfpack. If you want to submit your own story, the links for my email and subreddit will be down below. I've also created a Discord, so if you want to join that, the link will be in the description down below as well. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And with that said, have beautiful nightmares, and I will see you next time.